5 months of unabated war, thousands of lives lost, hundreds of thousands injured, and millions of lives devastated. Gaza today has turned into a hellscape. With the mounting trauma of war, its people are also facing hunger and starvation, as only a trickle of aid has been able to get through. Frustrated over obstruction of aid deliveries and a worsening humanitarian crisis, the United States has announced an emergency mission to build a temporary dock on the Gaza shoreline, allowing aid deliveries on a large scale. Our next report explains.
For Muslims across the world, Ramadan is a time of prayers, joy, and evenings full of scrumptious meals. But all Gazans wish for this year is an end to their suffering. 5 months of war has left the Palestinian enclave devastated, with tens of thousands of people killed. Much of the territory has become a hellscape of bombed-out neighborhoods and mass graves dug in the sand. There have been dire warnings of mass starvation. Aid agencies say children are dying from hunger, which has reached catastrophic levels. There is lack of food, water, and medical services added to the mounting exhaustion and trauma caused by the war. Aid deliveries have collapsed, with only a fraction of the food needed getting in. The United Nations has warned of famine if aid deliveries are not increased.
إحنا انصابت فينا أمراض ومش قادرين نعالجها بالمرة، فيش حتى كمان دواء إنه نعالجها. وإحنا إيش ذنبنا نعيش في هذه الحياة؟ إيش ذنبنا نعيشها؟ يعني هقت ضاعت سنة من حياتي، أنا إيش استفدت من الحرب هذه؟ إيش استفدنا إحنا؟ دمرنا، مدارسنا راحت، أهالينا راحوا، كلهم راحوا. طب إيش استفدنا من هاي الحرب كلها؟ إيش استفدنا؟ إحنا كشعب إيش استفدنا من هاي الحرب؟ إيش ذنبنا إحنا نعيش هاي الحرب وهاي المعاناة؟ كلهم قاعدين في بيوتهم مسيدين مكرمين، وإحنا قاعدين بنعاني هنا. إيش ذنبنا إحنا؟ مش إحنا المفروض نكون في مدارسنا القدا وفي بيوتنا؟ إيش ذنبنا؟
إحنا بنعاني من العنف، من القهر، من الذل، من الإهانة، من أقصى أنواع التعذيب من الاحتلال. إحنا مش بطلع بدنا إشي، إحنا نازحين من شمال غزة. إحنا كنا معززات مكرمات في بيوتنا، كل إشي بنطلبه كان متوفر لنا، بيجينا لحد عنا. الآن ما فيش إشي عنا، لا مية، لا كهرباء، لا غاز، لا أكل. كل إشي إلنا بنعاني فيه بأقصى درجات الاضطهاد، الظلم. يعني الواحد إيش بده يحكي الواحد؟ يعني حسبي الله ونعم الوكيل.
The United States says it will build a temporary dock on the Gaza shoreline to allow the delivery of humanitarian aid on a large scale. The emergency mission, led by the US military, will set up a pier that will be able to receive large ships carrying food, water, medicine, and temporary shelters.
More than 30,000 Palestinians have been killed, most of whom are not Hamas. Thousands and thousands of innocents, women and children, girls and boys, also orphaned. Nearly 2 million more Palestinians under bombardment or displacement. Homes destroyed, neighborhoods in rubble, cities in ruin. Families without food, water, medicine. It's heartbreaking. Tonight, I'm directing the U.S. military to lead an emergency mission to establish a temporary pier in the Mediterranean on the coast of Gaza that can receive large shipments carrying food, water, medicine, and temporary shelters. No U.S. boots will be on the ground. A temporary pier will enable a massive increase in the amount of humanitarian assistance getting into Gaza every day.
The US president also called on Israel to do its part. The White House made clear that the decision to open the sea route for aid had come with frustration of what is seen in Washington as Israeli obstruction of deliveries.
Israel must do its part. Israel must allow more aid into Gaza to ensure humanitarian workers aren't caught in the crossfire. And they're announcing they're going to have a crossing in northern Gaza. To the leadership of Israel, I say this: humanitarian assistance cannot be a secondary consideration or a bargaining chip. Protecting and saving innocent lives has to be a priority.
The United States and its allies have expressed increasing outrage over the worsening humanitarian crisis in Gaza. Deliveries by trucks have been interrupted by warfare, looting, and also by Israeli protesters at the Egypt-Gaza crossing. Earlier this week, the US began airdrops. France, Belgium, Jordan, the UAE, and Egypt also airdropped aid. The Turkish Red Crescent too sent its biggest aid shipment yet to Gaza via Egypt, with a ship carrying around 3,000 tons of food, medicine, and equipment. A UN expert said that Israel was destroying Gaza's food system as part of a broader starvation campaign in its war against Hamas. On Tuesday, the World Food Programme said its first attempt in 2 weeks to bring food aid to northern Gaza was blocked by Israeli soldiers. The UN agency said that their convoy of 14 trucks was turned back at a checkpoint.
At the moment, the Israeli cabinet has not taken a decision to open additional crossings. It's fairly factual, and we need more of those. It's been made very clear to me from the outset that there is little willingness, there is concern, as it's stated, over domestic sensitivities when crossings were to open. You've seen sometimes the demonstrations, but in the absence of a deal concerning the hostages, we so far do not get the impression there is a willingness to do more. However, I expect that additional crossings will be opened, also based on my conversations. But I'm not putting my hand in the fire. I've also spoken about the importance of the diversification of the supply routes. Via land, this remains the optimal solution. It's easier, it's faster, it's cheaper, particularly if we know that we need to sustain humanitarian assistance to Gazans for a long period of time. And of course, I've spoken to the importance of opening additional crossings.
Israel has rejected such allegations. It says it's prepared to let in more aid, that it has permitted to open 2 checkpoints. Israel instead blames the United Nations and other aid agencies for failing to distribute aid wisely. Meanwhile, in Egypt's capital Cairo, ceasefire talks showed no progress. Hamas left as discussions after 4 days of talks failed to reach a deal just days before the start of Ramadan. Both Israel and Hamas have blamed each other for the lack of agreement. The US says the onus was on Hamas to strike a deal on Israeli hostages. The talks will now resume on Sunday, the expected start of the Muslim holy month.
From impeachments to inaugurations, if it's a political story, we are on the scene. The race for the White House is heating up.
We're beating Biden.
How dare he say that?
If it's breaking news, we're live with the latest coverage. From the White House, the State Department, and Capitol Hill, we know the issues, but above all, we know the players to bring you the latest in-depth analysis on all the key stories that we're covering. I'm Eric Ham. Join me from Washington here on Firstpost America.